Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Adult Forum this morning. As a church, this is the first time we've done something on ballot issues. And although the federal government has said we now can say who people should vote for, this church will not be one of those who does that. But we'll be a church that talks about how our faith informs policies and legislation and ballot measures like today. So the folks we have here today are Lyle Smith-Gradiel, who is the Chief Operating Officer of United Way of Weld County, and Jan Friedland, who on her first retirement from Teton County was the county manager there. And then Lori Kadrich, who will be, sharing some local issues. She is currently the assistant manager of Larimer County.
Big job.
Big job, yeah. So thank you so much for all three of you being here today and presenting, and then we'll have time for questions. Yeah, thank you.
What do we do? So we're gonna talk about taxes.
Take it
So
away.
is that a popular topic?
Yes.
People like
Yes.
taxes. I mean, I like taxes. I've never not, so I'll give you my point of view. I've never not voted for a tax increase. In my history of voting, and I've voted
Perfect
for,
segue.
I've voted. So, since I was 18, and I don't recall not voting for a tax increase. But I think you'll, so that's the in outlook, but everybody's welcome to make their decisions. And I'll also say that on these ballot measures, I cannot vote for or against them because I live in Weld County. And the three that we're going to talk about primarily today, one is Fort Collins and two are Larimer County. And nevertheless, as I'll make clear in my comments, I think these are really important for Fort Collins and for Larimer County. And I say that because of my role with United Way of Weld County. And the challenges that we have in Weld County are similar to the challenges that we have in Larimer County. There is a line, but you can't see it on the ground there between the two counties. So these are all the same challenges that all of us are facing. And I do hope that those who are able to vote for them will strongly consider voting for them because of the good that they'll bring for our community.
I live out of county, so that means that I won't be able to vote for some days, right?
So two of them are Larimer County wide. Yeah.
Whatever county wide.
No, two of the three that we'll talk about here. Yeah, I'll make that clear when we're talking about it. Yeah. But I wanted to start with the Bible. Imagine that, the Bible in a conversation about our well-being and taxes. And this is actually, I'm going to read a little bit from Isaiah 58. And if you're not familiar with Isaiah, it's 65 chapters long. And what the scholars surmise is this was actually written by three different people at three different periods. The first part of the book, the first 40 chapters is actually written while the Israelites were still in the promised land. They were still on that, the land that they and God had together. And it was before the Babylonians overthrew the southern kingdom. So Isaiah was speaking to that people. And then there's a middle section that was written during the Babylonian captivity. So this is when they've lost their land, they don't know what the future holds. And so it's like a time of reflection on, why did this happen? And what do we do now? And then there's the third section of Isaiah, which was written by a person after they had gotten back to the land. And so at this point, they're like, well, how do we make it so this doesn't happen again? That's kind of the spirit of what is called third Isaiah. So this is actually Isaiah 58, and I'll read a little bit, and then I want to read some from an author that's written a commentary here on this passage, fellow by the name of Walter Brueggemann. So we'll do that, and then we'll get into the ballot initiatives. So this is from Isaiah 58. Shout out, do not hold back, lift up your voice like a trumpet. announce to my people their rebellion, to the house of Jacob their sins. Yet day after day they seek me and delight to know my ways, as if they were a nation that practiced righteousness and did not forsake the ordinance of their God. They ask of me righteous judgments. They delight to draw near to God. Why do we fast? But you do not see. Why humble ourselves? But you do not notice. Look, you serve your own interest on your fast day and oppress all your workers. Look, you fast only to quarrel and to fight and to strike with a wicked fist. Such fasting as you do today will not make your voice heard on high. Is such the fast that I choose, a day to humble oneself? Is it to bow down the head like a bulrush and to lie in sackcloth and ashes? You call this a fast, a day acceptable to the Lord? Rather, is this not the fast that I choose? To loose the bonds of injustice, to undo the thongs of the yoke, to let the oppressed to go free and to break every yoke? Is it not to share your bread with the hungry and bring the homeless poor into your house? When you see the naked, to cover them and not to hide yourself from your own kin, then your light shall break forth like the dawn, and your healing shall spring up quickly. Your vindicator shall go before you. The glory of the Lord shall be your rear guard. Then you shall call, and the Lord will answer. You shall call for help, and he will say, here I am. And the passage goes on to describe some other, how it could be. If the people live the kind of life, envision a world that the world that God has in mind, and then live a life that is aligned with that world. And one of the things about this passage that's very helpful for me is it's so binary. We're actually in a world of binary, and we realize it kind of, but we're in a world of a lot of ones and zeros during a lot of our life. 1 or 0 just made that thing that just happened to my phone happen. And it's a very if-then ones and zeros. And this is not exactly like that, but it's kind of like that in that it's an if we do this, then this will happen. And I think that is, I don't live enough by that in my life. I wish it was more if then, because I don't realize the consequences of what I do and what I say. And nevertheless, that's something that's helpful for me. And I really do see that in this passage. And then this is the reflection by Walter Brueggemann. Here, the prophetic tradition advocates an understanding of religion that is focused primarily on neighbor love. A fast is a religious discipline, but the kind of fast, religious discipline God would like to see has to do with the breaking of oppression and with concern for the suffering those who lack food, clothing, and shelter. Indeed, the last phrase of verse 7 in Hebrew goes beyond calling the poor and the homeless your own kin, as in English, to calling them your own flesh. That is, the ones addressed by the poetry must stand in profound solidarity with the needy. This imagined scenario of true religion is contrasted by the preceding verses, in which a phony kind of religion is punctilious, whatever that one means, about liturgical and pious practices, but at the same time is economically exploitative of workers who work for low pay and are gouged by high interest charges. This negative critique and the positive alternative articulate a profound either-or that is at the heart of prophetic understandings of covenantal faith. It is clear that this either-or is still on the table for men and women of faith in the Christian tradition. There's a great temptation to make religion a nice, sweet thing that is detached from economic reality. The sentiment of this poem would find that scandalous and unacceptable. And I'm not saying that if you don't vote for these tax increases, you're not practicing true religion, but I think that this is an opportunity to help our neighbors to practice neighbor love in a way that honestly isn't always that available. And I say that back to my work, in that as part of my work, I actually get to work with a regional collaboration that includes many of the cities: Fort Collins, Loveland, Greeley, Ames, Front Range, UNC, CSU, the two counties. Actually, it was MOU with the two sets of county commissioners that established this. It's called NOCO Works. And the intent of NOCO Works is to make it easier for employers to get and keep employees, and easier for employees to get and keep employment. And one of the groups, the subcommittees of NOCO Works, is called the External Barriers Committee, which is what the external barriers to employers getting and keeping employees, and employees getting and keeping employment. And amazingly, those three barriers are childcare, housing, and transportation. And these three ballot initiatives, guess what they address? Transportation, housing, and childcare. What an opportunity, and not just from like this passage, neighbor love, helping those who are having the most challenging circumstance. But from this perspective, from a NOCO Works perspective, this is actually what we need for our local economy, for employers and employees to have a more successful time of doing the things that we count on every day, whether we realize it or not. So there are three that we're going to talk about today, three of the ballot initiatives, and I'll address the first one on my own. And then actually Jan and I are going to say a little bit about the second one. And the third one is on transportation. I think Lori's going to mention a little bit about that. But should we talk about each one and then take questions, or how would you rather go about this? Do that? Okay, great. So the first one, and I brought a visual. So this is $100, two $50 bills. I had thought about getting $100 bill, but then I didn't do it in time before went to Pueblo, but happened to have two $50, and I don't even know how. I think one was a gift for my birthday from my mom. I'm 56. I'm still getting money from my mom. So the first one is actually ballot measure 2A, which is only for the city of Fort Collins. And here's the visual. So this is $100, and this would be 25 cents on every $100 sales tax in Fort Collins, and not including things like food and essentials. Yeah, but just more discretionary spending. And this is actually a capital improvement tax. And if this passes, sales tax rates will not raise. It's just an extension of the capital improvement tax. That is what 2A is. And it's this important for people in Fort Collins because over the next 10 years, it'll raise about $100 million, $110 million. And of the amount every year, 10%, 10 to 11% of that or so goes to housing. And so City of Collins, Fort Collins actually has a housing office. Vanessa Fenley is a person that I know that works there. And what they'll use this money for is to renovate housing, to do different kinds of housing projects. I mean, they could potentially even use it to do some of the work I think that Family Housing Network does, and the sheltering that they do. So it's housing. I believe it's also shelter, but for sure housing. Just how do we create more affordable housing in Fort Collins, and also to keep the affordable housing that we have, because every affordable housing project, there's a period of affordability. And once that period of affordability is gone, it can actually be sold just at market rate. So a lot of times these funds get used to purchase existing affordable housing. Here in Fort Collins also, there's been a lot of work on preserving manufactured homes mobile home parks, because that is what's called naturally affordable housing. But you know, even that can become unaffordable if the lot rents go up over time. And so what City of Fort Collins has done is to help some of the current residents of manufactured home communities to purchase the land. So that will be like as a co-op, so that will be permanently affordable. So this is an extension of an existing sales tax that would be aimed towards keeping housing affordable and developing new opportunities.
It's not a new tax.
It's not.
It's an extension
Yeah.
of an existing tax.
And there's other things that it pays for other capital improvement projects. Like with rec centers and with, I think one is to,
Well, they're all listed, yeah.
yeah, they're listed in the ballot. Yep, on the ballot.
Did you all get one of these at home? Okay. Joe didn't, but we'll make sure you get one, Joe.
Thank you.
Betsy?
I don't know if you were ready for the question. But,
Yeah, sure.
could you maybe, talk about that quote unquote period of affordability?
I can address that.
Yeah.
Good, thanks.
Affordable homes are deed restricted. So when you buy an affordable home for $100,000, for a long period of time, you're restricted in what you can ask to sell that home. So if probably that $100,000 home that you bought 10 years ago, today would be $350,000. Well, now it's not affordable. So your deed restricts the amount you can increase the resale. You could sell that house for $103,000. Maybe 110, but not 350. So it extends that time period, or if the city comes in or the state comes in and buys that house, they can extend that deed restriction.
Excuse me, what is the usual length of time on the original deed? You know,
Depends on the funding sources used. So there's this one funding source called low income housing tax credits. Which actually Bridget's Village, which St. Bridget where Felicia used to be, just opened a low income housing tax credit property. And I think it's 15 years. But then other fund sources it can be 30 years or 40 years. It just depends.
habitat houses are deed restricted as well.
Yes, for 50 years.
50 years,
50?
okay, yeah.
I was gonna say, it used to be more common, and probably in Jan's time as well, that a 30-year would
30
be
year.
pretty common. But then they started to lower that, to turn over the homes more and to increase the availability of houses. But the policy decisions now are going in the other way, more to lengthen them to the 50 to 100 year, because
can't
of
be
the
maybe
limited,
99.
yeah,
Well,
nine,
it
whatever,
seems like-
thanks, Jan.
Seems like a thing that is newer out there out west. I know back east, they have, those have been in place for a lot longer time, it seems.
It was the 30 years was because of the length of mortgage.
Right, yeah.
We get 30-year mortgages, so the 30-year
Yeah.
was
Thank you.
pretty
That was
just standard, yeah.
good.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, this gave me about 500 more questions. Thanks, Tim.
What are other things funded in this bill?
Do you want me to read the list?
Uh,
It's just pedestrian sidewalks, arterial intersection improvements, the Affordable Housing Capital Fund, there it is. Downtown Park Shop,
Okay,
transfer,
that gives me an idea
Gardens
what's
on-
in there.
yeah, gardens on Spring Creek for children,
Mhm.
that kind of thing. So
Okay, Thank you.
some niceties that are not as necessary as housing,
Mhm.
but there they are.
So is there a way of identifying what is an affordable house for an average family? Is that a bygone thing that used to maybe happen? I don't know.
So
The
they,
definition.
yeah, so
Yeah.
there's area median income. And depending upon that's around $75,000, I think, in Wall County. And then that number is used to determine what a household should be paying for rent or mortgage.
30%.
Right,
30.
so
30%
30%
of your
of area
income.
median. So let's simple math,
Yeah.
yeah. So it just depends upon your income.
Sure.
If you're paying more than 30%, then you're considered housing cost burden.
If I might add to
Yeah.
that, we just recently had a study done by a consultant for Larimer County itself. And what we learned is that you can't use the 30% anymore because that covers 80% of the households in our county. And so you can't identify those homes that are highest at risk because nearly everyone in our area is paying more than that 30% towards housing. And if you add childcare to that, then you're talking 60 to 70% of people's income are going to those two things. So what they've gone to is a 50%, but in Fort Collins proper itself, if I remember the statistic correctly, 70% of the households in Fort Collins are paying more than 30% of their income. And it's roughly 50% outside of Fort Collins. And it's less the further east you get. But that 30% for our area right now, it covers nearly everyone.
And I think the, habitat houses, is it, they average about 250,000, if I can consider. They're gonna have to pay.
That's the cost point that Habitat uses, but we've raised about half of that. Our contributions and any kind of support for the construction of those houses. And so the actual cash cost is much lower, but it depends on
And
which
those are,
house in which area.
those are not contemplated. The Habitat houses are not a part of the ballot.
No, it's not a private
That's
operation.
problem, yeah.
And it's a different story because they have no interest.
Right.
As part of it.
But that's off,
It's a
yeah,
totally different.
it's a totally different thing. Terry,
So what is the difference between an apartment house, and there are a lot of them being built right now, and a house? Are they judged to be the same? It's like buying a co-op or
In terms of affordable.
it's affordable, yeah. So how does that fit into this whole big area of trying to figure out the cost? Do people buy, I don't know if people buy any apartments, I think,
that would be a condo then.
yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're renting or purchasing or being in a HOA. It's what are you paying for housing, which is where the barrier comes in.
Right.
But again, apartments aren't controlled here either.
No, but they're
Right.
part of that calculation. If you're
Yeah.
paying $2,000 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment, you're in what Lori's talking about, the 50% burden.
Right, it's simple math. If that's 24,000, if your utilities, that's too much, but 6,000, you'd have to make $100,000 according to according to the 30% cost burden figure. And it doesn't matter the ownership model, if it's
Right.
rental or co-op or a condo or house, it's just having to do with the.
And that means I have to pay $35 for my hamburger at Big Al's.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd like to know why is affordable housing important?
Because philosophically and practically, it's our community. There's not a community if we can't afford to have teachers here, if we can't afford to have the sanitary workers, etc. We no longer have a community if we don't have everyone on that community, and that means Little League coaches. That means Sunday school teachers. There's no community if we do not have all income levels, all strata.
May I add to that, Jane?
Yeah,
So one thing that we're really seeing in northern Colorado right now is this issue of commuter traffic. So our jobs are not where people are living. And it really speaks to the issue that Jan is talking about. So if I live in Fort Collins, right, I take my kids to the games that are in Fort Collins. But that does not happen for 90% of the people who live in Wellington because they're commuting to another community to work in, and they're spending most of their day in that other community. Windsor is 60%. Fort Collins is 50%. 50% of the people who live in Fort Collins work somewhere else. And so this sense of community that we may have seen 25 or 30 years ago is really dispersing due to housing cost and availability over northern Colorado. People from Weld County, we have anywhere from 55 to 60% of people that are going to Weld County to work. Weld County has the same thing with people coming into Larimer County to work. And so that's one of the things that has really driven the issue of transportation, is to either make that commuting time easier or create housing affordability so people don't have to buy a home north of Wellington because it's affordable and then commute into somewhere else every day for work. But it's a huge issue. This is why you see the kind of traffic that you do every day if you go somewhere.
Yeah.
The other thing that we see is the services that you need every day are dispersed over that whole region as well. And so there's a lot of traffic being driven just for day-to-day needs and a lot of time that people are spending in their car rather
Which-
than in their home or in their community.
Or with children,
Mhm.
because that also begs the question is where is childcare?
Oh, yes.
And if childcare can't be affordable close to where I work, that has just separated the amount of time I'm
Yeah.
with my child as well. So these three issues are completely intertwined. Pete?
Is there such a thing as a regional planning commission?
For housing, for which piece of it?
Well, or Collin, Loveland, Windsor, you name it.
Let's
Is there
revisit
such
that.
a thing?
Let's-
Let's
yeah.
revisit that at the end.
Yeah. let's do that
I think
again.
we should go to transportation.
He says we're gonna revisit that at the
Yeah.
end.
We'll go to that at the end, yeah.
Okay, I want to bump up a little bit and talk about taxation, because the number one question we get asked as a county is how come there isn't enough property tax to pay for the things you need in the county, because I pay a boatload of money for my property tax. So I want to start there. Number one, we live in a very unique state that is Tabor restricted. And so if you know anything about Tabor, the essence of Tabor is this to local government. We don't have control over taxation. So anytime we need to raise or lower taxes, it has to go to a vote of the people. Where in many other states, the elected officials could raise the tax to pay for X and then get rid of the tax when that goes away. That can't happen in our state. It has to be done by a vote. So it's not an easy thing to do. Larimer County has not changed its mill levy since the 60s. It's been the same mill levy. Now,
Yeah.
the assessed valuation of the property has gone up astronomically since the 60s, so there's more money. But that money only goes to Larimer County to be dispersed to the agencies who receive the property tax. So the most common question we get is, you get thousands of dollars every year for property tax. Why aren't you spending it more on roads if you need more money for roads? Well, over 50% of the property tax you pay goes to the school districts. The county itself receives on average 23% of the property tax. Of that 23%, 80% goes to the criminal justice system. So we are required as a county to have a jail. We're required to have the 8th Judicial District. We're required to do the court system. Obviously, we're required to have a sheriff and to pay for the sheriff's office. The sheriff is required to take care of wildland firefighting. So the county pays for all of those costs. And that is the number one driver of the county's budget. And when we looked back at what has happened since we got the last time we got big increases of property tax, all of the money we got went to the sheriff's department. And almost all of it went for what we call unfunded mandates. So it's when the legislature said every sheriff's deputy and every deputy in the jail has to wear a camera. Somebody had to buy those cameras. The state didn't give us money to buy the cameras. They didn't give money for storage. They didn't give money for the technicians to review all the cameras. They didn't give any money to the district attorney's office that now has to review thousands of hours of tape related to any kind of crime that happens. So it's just these cascading costs. The most recent legislature said you need to have more family time for people who are incarcerated in jail. And when you have more family time, here's how we want you to set up the room. Here's who needs to be in the space. None of that is paid for. So we spent millions of dollars literally every year to take care of these unfunded mandates. And I'm not trying to say those mandates are good or bad. I'm just saying where the increase of the property taxes that we've received have gone to the criminal justice side of our system. Now we are facing any extra dollars we have need to go to human services. The reductions on the human services side of what has happened with House Bill 1 and other kinds of funding are ginormous. It is, if you get a chance to see the presentation right now that the city of Fort Collins, the university, UC Health, the county, and the school district are doing that talk about the impact of the federal changes since the first of the year and how that's going to impact the county overall. I'd really encourage you to watch that or get a chance to see it.
Where is it?
I think there are videotaped work sessions, but the last one was at the Lincoln Center that was open to the public. And so you'll just want to look
Can
any
we
one of
find
those.
it and put it in the,
I can probably find that and,
It's,
and
and
we'll
get
put
it.
it in the.
Yeah.
it's on the chamber website right now.
Yeah,
And
because
we're gonna
the chamber is the chamber is the one who started it to say, look, we need to know what's gonna happen in our area.
Can you be taking notes on this? Does anybody else need paper and a pencil to take notes?
So,
And the reason can I just interrupt you for 1 minute? We're preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
I mean, here we are talking to you all. And it's preaching to the choir, but I think we need to equip you to talk to others and challenge you, as we talked about Isaiah. Get out there and make a drumbeat and talk to others. So taking notes on this information, I think, is really critical, and I'm happy to go look back at the tape and
So you're gonna have a link in the epistle. So we
take
can go
minutes on
back
this.
into this House Bill 1 impact of federal changes talk.
Yeah,
Okay.
so you're getting a lot of information.
Yeah.
So Lori, what will the ballot measure 1A do?
well, 1A will give us the 15 cents that you have for your $100. That can take care of what we call unincorporated roads. And so this is a kind of a civics lesson. I apologize in advance for that. But if this is a very common question I get about this. I am sick of road construction in Larimer County. Everywhere I go, someone is building something. How can you possibly need more money? Well, I can tell you who's building is not the county, because the county doesn't have any money to be building any roads. So right now, what happens in our area, and it's true in Weld County as well, as the incorporated areas build, so you're talking Loveland, Fort Collins, Windsor, Timnath, all the communities that we see that are growing. When Claudia develops her new subdivision, she has to pay for road construction. So she puts in the storm drainage, she builds sidewalks, she builds bike paths, she builds open space, for her subdivision and all the nice new urban standard roads that go with that. None of that money goes to the county. So if you're driving around, what you'll see, and I love to use Taft Hill as an example, because you'll see all the urban development where Fort Collins is at, nice 4 or 5 lane road. Then you come to the unincorporated area right by Harmony, zooms into 2 lanes, and you go, what the heck is the matter with everyone? Why didn't they fix this? Well, there's no money. We get about $7 million a year through our portion of the property tax to pay for nearly 1,000 miles of roads within the unincorporated area. The other thing that we support is we support all the natural areas, all the recreational areas, all the Forest Service areas, those areas that will never develop. So we're never gonna get money to develop the roads there. So the county is in a very different position than the cities are to develop the roads. On top of that, the cities must have been very smart years ago because they lobbied the legislators to say that counties can't use their general fund dollars to pay for road construction. So there's a prohibition against that. And if you use property tax dollars, you have to share back with the cities. So the money that we use today that comes from property tax is shared with the other cities. So if we want to take a bigger portion, like take some from the criminal justice system into roads, we give 1/3 of that away to the cities so that they can use it for roads. So what we would need, we have to take even more away. So fiscally, it doesn't make sense necessarily for us to do that. That's why we're asking for dedicated sales tax. The county has never asked for general fund money for sales tax. Everything we have for sales tax is dedicated to a specific purpose. And most of those dedications are shared with all the municipalities. So if you look at behavioral health money, that's shared. If you look at open space money, 50% of that is shared out. The jail is not. The jail is one of them. But if you think of who goes to the jail, it takes care of the rest of the county. So that's what we're looking for transportation. It's a sunsetted tax. It takes care of this much of the county's need over time. But we're hoping it might be kind of like the city's capital tax, where when it sunsets, we can show the community we've done what we said we would do with the money that you gave us, and that people will find value in that, and then we can ask for that to be extended. Yes.
I haven't counted, but almost all my shopping is done in Fort Collins. And so there, Fort Collins, it's my sales tax that I'm paying on whatever I buy with.
Mhm. Yes.
Now,
Well, you pay Fort Collins sales tax in addition to the county. But the
That's right.
county sales tax does not go towards county government, it goes to specific purposes.
what I mean, when I purchase something in Fort Collins, I pay their sales tax,
Mhm.
percentage. Now, I can get that back, but I have to go and apply for it or whatever. And it's just a pain to do that, so I don't do that. So I am giving Fort Collins my money to shop with.
Yes. And
And
Fort
they're not
Collins
sharing.
wishes you would give them more because their
Yeah.
sales tax is declining right now because people are shopping other places. Yeah.
We could put up tolls, so if you leave Fort Collins and go home and go on a county road, we'll have a toll booth and you can start
That
contributing
was
to
an
that.
idea we looked at.
That's
And the
the
reason
only-
we
that's the
did is
only
because that's
alternative.
what you're seeing with the state of Colorado.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why there are toll roads. It's Tabor based. It starts there. Yes.
It's way off topic here, but just, I'm sorry, I don't understand the logistics completely, but can Tabor go away?
Yes, but right now, and I think I can say this because this is not a political statement. So I can't have, as a county employee, I cannot advocate for or against the ballot measure that's on for the county. But in this case, Tabor is not on. But I think one of the worst things that's happened in Colorado right now is everybody has done end runs around Tabor. And so what you're gonna see a couple statewide ballot measures, again, that's taking these Tabor overrides and applying them here and applying them there and applying them here, instead of ripping the Band-Aid off and doing a fix or changing the taxation of the system overall. It's been messed with for so long that I don't know if you could go back now without, voting on about 10 different things to remove Tabor statewide, like many communities have. Many communities have what's called de-bruised, but gotten rid of Tabor in their community, but it doesn't change the fundamental issue that they still have to go to the voters for a tax increase or a tax reduction. Yeah.
Any other questions about 1A, transportation?
So without saying it, it'd be a pretty good idea to vote for it, huh?
Well, or
Well,
pay a toll as you get on a county road. That's what I'm telling my friends. If you are against this, and let me introduce myself as you introduce yourself. I am a conservative Republican. I'm the Republican in the room. And
Two Republicans.
two Republicans and fiscally conservative, Madison Republican here. But the alternative to my Republican relatives is there's only one other solution, and that's to put up a toll to give the county the money that they need to maintain that road. Otherwise, they're not gonna get it. So either it's a yes on this, or it's a toll booth before you get home.
if you vote yes on this, your taxes don't change at all. We just continue to collect the 15 cents.
No, not on
This
the
is a new-
15 cents. So that if you vote yes for the
This is a sales tax.
transportation, this would be an increase, because right now you're not paying this 15%.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
It's
but
other
the
taxes.
25% for the city is not an increase.
Yes, okay.
This is an increase.
And again, same kind of exemptions like the city has, so you don't pay it on food or medicine, things like that.
Wow. That was a mouthful, guys, thanks.
Okay, we got one more to go. So this is 1B. And this is actually for early childhood care and education. And what this tax would do, it is 25 cents on every $100. And what this tax would do is it would create around $28 million per year that would be managed by Early Childhood Council of Larimer County. And it would be used for three things. One would be to subsidize families who need subsidy in order to afford childcare. There's actually a statewide program that does that uses federal funds to do it, and it is now frozen. No one in Larimer County, no one in Weld County can use that subsidy anymore because of the stagnant amount of money that's available, and also because families are using it. So they're not taking new enrollees to what's called CCAP. So this would actually create a new revenue source to help families that need childcare, because one parent household or two parent households, because they're both in the workforce. And if they can't find childcare, then they won't be in the workforce. So that's one thing it would do, is to subsidize families to be able to afford childcare. The second is it would actually pay more to early childhood education workers. So people that provide childcare. Childcare in the United States is known as a market failure, because we can't, households can't afford to pay for childcare on their wages at the current rates. And if the rates were to increase to a market point where the childcare providers would be able to, make a good living on it, then it would be way unaffordable. It's already unaffordable for families. would be so much more affordable for families. And so you have this situation where families can't afford it, and also early childhood education workers aren't getting paid enough. They're getting paid $17, $18, $19 per hour. And that's not a living wage in hardly any of Colorado, and certainly not in Larimer County. So another thing that this would do is to help childcare providers, be family childcare home providers or centers, to be able to pay their employees more. And so that's not only gonna help those employees, but it's also gonna limit turnover. Some childcare centers will have 60% turnover every year. And so this is a problem for that. And the third thing that it would do would provide a fund that is for the expansion of existing providers. Like there was a provider in Firestone in Weld County that Felicia and I used to walk by every day, that before expansion, before they got some support from the state through United Way of Weld County, they were watching 8 children, and it allowed them to expand to 20 children. So this would allow childcare providers to increase capacity, and also this money could be used to start new family childcare homes or to start new childcare centers. So those are the 3 things: subsidize families, pay childcare providers more, and then also to increase the number of childcare opportunities.
John,
I was just gonna say, could you give people an example of how much childcare for a 3-year-old costs? Do you, I mean, I imagine many of these people don't realize how much it costs.
Yeah, it's gonna cost $15,000 a year or so for
And a baby
for a
is-
child.
Is.
Babies
Even
more.
more expensive, right? Go ahead, Jean.
the reason that childcare is expensive is because it's highly regulated, as it should be. The ratios, you can't make money in childcare. If you don't have infant care, you can at least break even. If you have infant care, it is a losing business. And again, the business is paying property tax, et cetera, et cetera. So all of that plays in. The ratios for child to provider. Infant care is 1 to 4. There has to be 1 person for every 4 infants. As children get older, the number goes down, and those people are responsible for the health and safety. When I was in Teton County, and talk about expensive place to have childcare because the land is so expensive, it was unaffordable. And in the 12 years that I was the county manager, we had 2 infant deaths from having grandma or the neighbor take care, as we used to be able to do, but it's not regulated. So if I want my child to be safe, I am going to put my child in a licensed daycare provider, early childhood education provider. And the Chamber of Commerce is behind this because it has to do with employees. And there's a phenomenon called presenteeism. I am going to be present at work, different from absenteeism. But if I'm worried about my child, or I'm worried about my aging parent, I have lost productivity up to 45%. I am not paying attention to what I'm doing. And so presenteeism is important for industry. That's why the chamber's behind this. And I think we need to fund childcare differently, because I think our local governments need to pony up. But in the very conservative state of Wyoming, I mean, you talk about a conservative red state, early childhood education is considered by the state of Wyoming infrastructure. Every community needs lighting, sewers, roads, childcare. The state of New Mexico, same thing. Same thing. It is infrastructure. It's required. It's not paid for,
Right.
So let me just clarify the payment, right? So if you do vote for this early childhood measure, the money does not go to the early childhood council. The money goes to the county, just like any other tax would go to the county. That's why it's a county initiative. You can't give a tax dollar to a nonprofit agency directly. And so what the county did a couple years ago was put out a request for proposals to anyone who would want to use this money for the purposes that Lyle described. And the Early Childhood Council submitted a proposal, and there's a scope of work between them and the county. So if this measure passes, the county gets a portion of the money that we'll use to administer the contract and the programs. Also set up a rainy day account in case there are other things outside of the Early Childhood Council that need to be addressed related to childcare in other portions of the county. And then we'll administer the funds to make sure and oversee the contract to make sure that the Early Childhood Council does what they said they're going to. Not that we're expecting that they wouldn't, but just so that you know that there is an oversight mechanism in place for that. Yes.
It's might be too in the weeds, but so then how does the council get money to that worker? Like we're saying, they're make more?
Yeah, so the contract, the scope of work for the contract requires a certain percent of money to go to each one of those things that are determined to be best practices in the industry to improve and increase childcare in our area. And so that our contract person will make sure that that money goes directly to them.
Childcare workers, for instance, have to do continuing education. And
This will
for
provide
$16,
dollars for
yeah,
that.
for $16 an hour, you expecting me to do my
I
own
tell you how
home?
bad this is. I work with high school, early childhood educators at Fort Collins and Rocky Mountain High School. 4 of those teachers decided they all wanted to have babies. One of them quit her job working for the Fort Collins High School to become the caregiver for the 3 other teachers. Because she had a master's degree and was teaching, Fort Collins High School lost their current concurrent enrollment so that the students in that high school no longer could get front range college credit for their high school early childhood education. That lasted for 4 years.
She traded then.
Yeah, she traded out and now she's back on the.
And another one of those 4 teachers is working on her master's degree while being the childcare provider for all those children.
Interesting.
So you had said that there were 3 things: money to families, to help it become more affordable, money to childcare professionals, 3rd thing.
Expand
Facility.
capacity.
Okay.
Yeah, that's expand.
You have to have
Grow-
the
grow-
training so that you have home care providers and childcare, early childhood providers have continuing education and training.
Grow,
That's
Some
grow
of
the
the
number,
childhood-
grow the number of slots, childcare slots.
Right.
Yeah.
And that'll really address at least what we're thinking, address some of the issues that Jan talked about for infant care.
Oh, yeah.
Because even for infant care, there's certain things that are required in homes. And that's where we see a lot of infant care, because of the cost of that, but people can't upgrade their home to meet the requirements
meet
for
the
that.
requirements.
Yeah, it just doesn't pencil.
So hard to find 30
Mhm.
years ago.
Oh,
Yes.
Yes, like you needed to get in with somebody, basically the moment you found out that you were pregnant.
Yeah.
we advised high school seniors to get on the waiting list. Because maybe they could get in 5 years. After college, I mean, get on the waiting list now before you're even.
Yeah, when I got my 3 kids, which now is 15 years ago. The first year I lived in Fort Collins, I paid $27,000. For Elijah was 1.5, so he had full-time care, but the other 2 had part-time care. But it was $27,000 the first year.
Yep.
And that's been how long?
That was 15 years ago. That was my first year, and so the numbers are even higher today because the the minimum wage for workers was not in place. Some of the other requirements were not in place. And, you know, I was blessed, right, that I'm old and had money and savings that I could handle that, but it was a rude awakening to go, there's no way on earth, if I was at the beginning of my career, that I would have this kind of capacity to take on these 3 kids financially. I don't know what I would have done.
So any other on 1B, any other questions? Jan, what were you gonna say?
Just,
Go ahead.
to me, it's child safety. And when they talk about the child development, that having a child at 1.5 or 3 years old in early childhood education, this isn't grandma care. This is really important to have them in early childhood education as their little minds are developing.
And it should be play-based, and because play is the child's.
Well,
vehicle
there-
for
yeah.
development. It is not sitting and learning letters at 1.5. I'm sorry, that's not what.
So there are a number of different models, and Reggio is one and Montessori is one, et cetera, et cetera. And that's a personal choice, but children thrive through this and are safe. Terry,
So,
did you?
I have a question. Again, I'm embarrassed. We have lived in, Colorado now for 14 years. And I've never paid any attention to taxation. My husband does that. In upstate New York, where we maintain a residence, a little cabin, they are building a school from private funds, from foundations, from individual givers, to create something called Play ADK, which is early childhood education. Do we not in Colorado solicit, make money, get money from foundations, private individuals? And if so, who governs those funds? And is it foolproof that they will end up where they're deemed to be most needed?
we do, and this is actually to Pete's question. So regionally in housing, transportation, and childcare, we have 2, in Weld County and Larimer County, we have things called early childhood councils that are, that is their role, is to attract more resources. They do get some resources from the state to support childcare providers, to get into business, to stay in business, and to maintain the number of childcare opportunities, and also to grow the number of childcare opportunities. I mean, the problem with childcare is it is a market failure. It's never going to be able to pay for itself. And there will, even though we do get some, like Buell Foundation is a
Right.
statewide foundation that funds early childhood efforts, but they will never have enough money at Buell Foundation to be able to make it so that childcare provided locally is not a market failure. But we do have that regional aspect, and those 2 councils work closely together. And actually, the Weld Council is managed by my workplace at the United Way of Weld County. The section is actually, we have a thing called the North Front Range Metropolitan Planning Organization, which one of their main roles is transportation planning for most of Larimer and Weld counties. So they have like a plan all the way to 2050 about things that are needed.
We know how to plan.
In transportation. That doesn't mean we have the resources, but they have a plan to be able to attract resources to. And then on housing, just recently, NOCO Foundation, there's lots going on. Habitat, I mean, we have 5 habitats in those 2 counties. We have Housing Catalyst, we have other nonprofit and governmental agencies that are doing affordable housing. It's not enough though. I mean, you know, if everything that is planned for right now were built out, it would take about, 10% of the need for affordability in Larimer and Weld counties. And NOCO Foundation actually hired a regional housing officer that is helping to align those efforts. And we're even gonna, like in those conversations, we're gonna set a goal, what's the need? It's probably about 10,000 units in Larimer and Weld counties, at least, for greater affordability. And then, they're attracting some funding. They brought some of their own funds at NOCO Foundation to this. But to increase the availability of funding for, affordability, be it, preserving or new builds. And they're actually, using Omaha, Nebraska as a model for this, because their community foundation got into this a few years ago. But the last thing I'll say, and this is because Joyce Sullivan with Nunway of Larimer County said it, I thought it was so good. She said this actually to the commissioners when they were deciding whether or not to put the 1B on the ballot. She said, we will never have enough fundraising golf tournaments and evening galas to be able to raise the amount of money that's needed for, childcare for sure, but also transportation and housing. And it's only through, public will and public desire to see these areas of our community improved. And that comes through, taxation. And that's the mechanism that's available. And, it's because we want our neighbors to thrive, I think is, the main reason why we want to vote for these kinds of things and do the kind of work that we do. I mean, like with Habitat and other ways that we work in these areas, and others that are challenging for people like behavioral health. We want the best for our neighbors, and this is an opportunity to do that, in these 3 areas.
Time is up, and I
Yeah.
want to thank the 3 of you for giving yourselves.
This is actually on the early childhood, so 1B, if you're interested, you can take one of those. And it answers many of the questions that
And
were asked today.
don't be shy. Ask, take this information to others. Please.
They agree, like,